So great to have you guys with me today on the final episode of Discovering Your Earliest Movements in Utero. So I realized at the end of our conference on last Saturday, December 21st, 2024, that there was more material to bring to your attention. I certainly wanted to make sure I gave you everything I could. So thank you for coming. And I do want to talk again about the importance of the lower pelvic pit, the lower half of our body's pelvic pit, which we introduced last Saturday, because nobody talks about it. And Bonnie Cohen is the only one that I know who's actually brought that up. And if you look in the books, like Gray's Anatomy, which is a basic primer for anatomy, you'll find that they really don't understand how this develops and what's going on in the lower part of the body. We're always talking about the notochord rising up and the neural tube going up, and we never talk about these structures going down. So it's really key that we're looking at the lower part of us, because gee whiz, what happens in the pelvis?
Everything.
Everything. We've got our intestinal tract, we've got our reproductive organs, we've got we've got the ovaries and the bladder and the ureters and the kidneys and the anal canal and the rectal canal. We have so many structures down there. Connective tissue and muscle. We have the ganglion of Empire. Do you remember that? Didn't I mention that? Yes.
Yeah.
We have a ganglion of Empire. What is so important about that? Well, it's important because it's a place where the ganglion, that are the sympathetic chains of nerves that are formed on either side of our spine, join at the base, really at the tail, in front of the coccyx. You have that ganglion. And so that is huge to have a meeting place. It's like having, I don't know, the Pentagon down there, coordinating so much. The nervous system down there, and it's all connecting, and all the wires and the myriads of nerve cells coming together and joining forces in front of the tail. And the tail is known for having the parasympathetic nervous system. The head, the neck is parasympathetic, and the tail is parasympathetic. So you have this huge meeting ground in the tail. You have the elimination of these waste products. You have the connecting tissues through the ganglion of Empire. You have muscles that develop in that area to help with the bowels and help with your pelvic floor and help with birthing. And you have blood vessels that form there. You have fat that forms there. And so what I'd like you to feel, just to have a sense of your tail being a place of replenishment, that we don't really think about that pelvic pit. We don't really think about what is going on in our lower half. So I think that I mentioned to you the primitive streak. Did I talk about the primitive streak? Would you get that?
Barely remember something.
Yeah, the three layers. We have the three layers, right? We have the ectoderm, which becomes the skin. The endoderm, which is the center, becomes the organs. And the mesoderm, which actually gives rise to the middle of the body, where the notochord rises up in the primitive streak. So if you put your hands down towards your, what would be the bottom here, and you feel what is called the perineal area, the perineum, and in the center of the perineum, you have what we call a perineal body. And that's like a gland that hasn't been named, but it's a very important energy center, which we talk about in yoga, or you talk about in other systems. Feel your perineal body, if you can. move from that perineal body. See if you can feel like you have I think about the glands as hot coals. This is not particularly, it's not a burning thing, but it's an energy. It's an energy here. Feel the energy.
Where the two hips come together?
Now that's below those places where the ganglion is. The ganglion of Empar is actually in front of the coccyx at the tip. And this is not a bony part. This is a soft, energetic part that's in front of the ganglion of Empar. So you can feel that from that perineal body rises this structure called the primitive streak. And it goes about halfway up. There's a node that forms. And as it recedes, just feel that for a second. See if you can feel this rising. Your cells are gonna remember that there's a primitive streak here. And then as it recedes, it's thought to be just a stop at the end, but it doesn't really stop at the end. It goes into the tail, your tail. There's something called the bud, the tail bud, that continues the lower half of the body growing. So the primitive streak returns downward and continues, doesn't stop at the perineal body, but it becomes part of the tail. And it's the tail that continues to grow downward. So there's your lower half sprouting. What's important about that is that this is where you have so much happening. You've got your pentagon down here, and all the books talk about everything rising. So we know that out of the primitive streak, the next structure to develop is called the notochord. The notochord is mesodermal. It's from the mesoderm. Like the primitive streak is mesoderm, and then it becomes primitive node. The primitive node gives rise to the notochord, which continues and is the actual organizer of the embryo. The notochord gives directions, what goes next, what happens next, and it rises up to the pituitary stalk in your brain. So there's a lot of information on that, about the pituitary and the rising of the notochord and the development of all these other structures, but there ain't nothing much about how it grows down. So going down, we want to feel, I want you to feel that you have growth coming down. And even though we're coming up in development, there's the downward growth. So our kidneys end up rising because of the development of the lower part of the body. So it's like there's this growth, and by default, the kidneys look like they're rising, but it's because the tail is growing and the structures are growing in the tail. So I want you to play with that embodiment. Do you have a question?
What's
No, I'm just saying how
place
interesting.
of liver?
I'm sorry.
Liver.
What about the liver?
Yes.
The liver is above this.
So it's part of the after, okay.
Yeah, the liver is above this.
Mm-hmm.
So the kidneys are below the liver.
Mm-hmm.
And the kidneys develop below the liver and go down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm going to play this video that I found, which I sent to you. And I think it'll give us a little bit of information that we can use. I put it up to the number 3 minutes, so it won't be quite as long. So it'd be more like 12 minutes, but it'll give you a bigger view. If you don't like it, just let me know. We can stop at any time. Let's see where we go. Let's see where it says where I stopped it. Okay, So we started, remember when I showed you that one picture, we start with one cell and develops into many cells. And then it becomes a circle. So you have this called a blastula. And then if you look at it sideways, you're going to see that there's 3 layers. This is the top layer, the ectoderm. Here's the mesoderm here, the red layer.
We can see what you're looking at.
Ah, thank you. I have to take my headset off and I have to share the computer.
Okay.
Thank you. Always helps to know what you can see, what you can't see. Okay, now you can
Now we
see?
can, yes.
Okay, so now I'm going to take my earpiece down so you can hear. Oh, here's the picture. Make this bigger. Here's the picture of the blastula. And then here is, I'll let him take over and explain things. Oops.
Gastrulation turns the blastula.
So he just said through the process of gastrulation. I'm not sure I used that word with you, but gastrulation is the next stage of development. So he just explaining this, the gastrulation, what happens in gastrulation.
Oops.
Which is the development of the 3 layers.
It's something like this. And don't let that scare you.
Don't let that scare you.
So, through a process of gastrulation, we get the gastrula. And essentially,
So now it's
the
called
gastrula center.
now it's called the
Why is that important? Why should I know what a blastula is? It's important because that was you in the beginning. It's the beginning of every human or person. This turns into this, if you're lucky. So, what's the next step after the blastula? A process called gastrulation turns the blastula. Oops. To something like this. And don't let that scare you.
Scare you.
So, gastrulation. We get the gastrula.
So the next structure is the
And
gastrula.
essentially, the gastrula is made up of the ectoderm, the mesoderm, and the endoderm. So the process of gastrulation from the blastula gives us these 3 layers we are so exposed to. So the outer layer would obviously be the ectoderm, ecto. The inner layer is obviously the endoderm, and the middle one, obviously the mesoderm. Obviously the mesoderm. So just to simplify that, and you'll always see, whenever anyone is describing embryology, you'll always see them like this. It's oversimplified: ectoderm layer, mesoderm middle layer, endoderm bottom layer. But if you've never been exposed to this, you wouldn't have any idea as to what that is, even now. You're probably still looking at this and wondering, what is this? This is a simplification for this. So endoderm, you're looking at it and you're saying, that's the bottom, it's not the inner. But it's the inner in the way that this is what we're looking at right here. So the outer layer, the ectoderm in blue, the inner layer in red, the mesoderm, M for middle, mesoderm, and then the inner layer, endoderm. Endoderm is also it's called. If you don't know anything, just learn that the blastula end up turning into these 3 layers called the gastrula. And these 3, just look at it as this way. So this is a cross-section of the embryo. We have the ectoderm, mesoderm, endoderm. If you don't understand anything about embryology, at least know this. At least know the 3 layers. Ecto, meso, endo. Know those. Okay?
Okay. You now know, again, the 3 layers, right? And what are they?
The three things she wrote there. Mesoderm is in the middle. I can't read exactly, and I can't repeat the words.
It's on your paper that I gave you. If you have that handout, it's the ectoderm on the outside, the mesoderm in the middle, and on the bottom, we have the endoderm in that picture. Okay. Did you find it? Okay. Somebody sent me a message, which I have to answer. Okay.
So I've drawn a couple of more mature slices of the embryo. Essentially what happens is that the ectoderm folds to form this neural fold, which it ends up pinching. So just step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Don't let it confuse you because we still have the the ectoderm here. We still have the mesoderm here, and we still have the endoderm here.
Okay, so we're following the development and the folding and the way the body moves in this fluid. And so you can play with any of these pictures. Let's say we're looking at this stage, which is the formation, it's called neurulation, a formation of this crest and this shape here. So if we move our bodies in this shape, play with it for a moment just to feel how you have replicated something that actually was a cellular structure in yourself. Right, and you're folding forward and you're folding over. I'm not sure how much detail he goes into. So play with that. Yes, beautiful. Beautiful. Azada, are you able to, is that a cat on your body?
Yes.
Oh, how sweet.
He likes to come and sit on me when I sit here.
Oh,
I did try a bit of that form of these 3 layers, like
yeah,
internal and then
exactly.
Okay. This is still the ectoderm. This is still in red the mesoderm, and in green that's still the endoderm. Okay. So as it matures, the ectoderm pinches and forms this neural tube, which I will label but not talk much about because it has nothing to do with kidneys. We're just going to stick to kidneys, okay? So in red, we are left with the mesoderm.
Okay, what does a neural tube do? What happens with the neural tube? You know, the 3 tubes that form in the embryo. The primitive streak gives rise to the notochord. That's the center, right? That forms our central axis, our central canal in the spinal cord. For a dancer, it's a key area because we can't really play with our movement unless we feel balanced, and we use the central axis to feel balanced. So you can spin around in all directions around your central axis. You could also think about the tube that's in the back. When that's the neural tube, what do you think that has to do with?
I'm looking for my notes. I think is the ectoderm what our arms and legs bud out of, or is it about the bones? Or neither?
Both actually, but the neural tube has our spinal structure.
Mm.
And let me see. I'm going to pull out my notes. Remember we did the derivatives?
Yeah.
Yeah, you find your plate? The neural tube becomes the central nervous system, the somatomotor neurons, the branchiomotor neurons, the presynaptic autonomic neurons, the retina and optic nerve, and the posterior pituitary. That's all from the neural tube. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Turn on my light. That's better. Yeah. The neural crest, which we were just embodying by bending our arms, becomes the peripheral sensory neurons, the postsynaptic autonomic neurons, all the ganglia that, those are the collection of nerve cells, the adrenal medulla cells, the melanocytes, which have to do with your skin, the bone, muscle, and connective tissue in the head and neck. And they don't mention it, but it also has fat cells. The fat cells for the face come from the neural crest. Okay, so you have this page in your notes, and as you go back to it, gradually or maybe quickly, you'll be able to assimilate that information in your movement. And then on the other side, you'll see what he's been talking about on the video, the ectoderm, the mesoderm, and the endoderm. So you have all this material, and by just exposure, you'll be able to pick up what I'm talking about, what this is about. And the idea really is to embody it. So it's not just a anatomy lesson, it's a experience. It's an experience. That's the whole thrust of this work, is that you're experiencing and embodying your body.
So you are recommending that we try to imitate that shape with our body.
Yes.
Forward, backward, and embody how a cell formed.
Exactly.
And can you explain the purpose of that?
Well, it helps to integrate and coordinate your whole nervous system and your functioning of your body physiologically. It has to do with everything alive, sleep cycle, your reproductive cycle, your getting rid of things cycle.
So, all these cells in our body has the same form, the same shape. So if we do that movement, it influences or touches all the cells?
Yeah.
Or just kidney?
No. What we're focusing on is the kidney part after those 3 layers develop. So we're focusing on the kidneys and the lower part because we need more work on that area. So that's why I'm focusing now on the lower part, in the pelvic pit, which nobody talks about, except for Bonnie. So you're getting this firsthand, fresh off the press, including the work on the fat cells, fat vacuoles.
And you and Bonnie are working on this?
Bonnie is teaching me and I'm teaching you. So she's been working on this like the last 6 months, but I've been working with Bonnie for 51 years.
Wow.
So, and all these layers of experience from this anatomical information is now much more easily expressed as I become familiar with them over time.
Mm.
And as we get older, it's very helpful to have this as a source and a resource to go back to regenerate ourselves, to feel that we can grow, that we can be healthy, that we can go back to the beginning and rebirth ourselves and feel those cells regenerate. It's in a way the fountain of youth. You could say that. Does that make any sense? Okay, we'll pick up.
And I think it's important for you to know what makes up the mesoderm, at least at this stage. So the first globlet thing here, this first receptor-like looking mesoderm, that's called the paraxial mesoderm.
So now we're talking about the columns that develop and the different structures that come out of each column. He went right to the paraxial. What does par mean? P-A-R. P-A-R means by.
Mm-hmm.
And axial refers to the axis. So it's right next to the axis of the neural tube. I think we're talking neural tube, yeah. Of course, we have another axis, which is our notochord, and then we have the gastric tube in the front. There's 3 tubes.
And he's talking about the mesoderm right now, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the kidneys come from the mesoderm.
Okay.
Okay.
And that gives rise to skeletal muscles, tendons, cartilage, and the dermis.
So he says skeletal, we say skeletal. So
Mm-hmm.
The next one we have, which is the important part because this is to do with the kidneys now, is this other ball-looking thing that you can easily discern as its own structure, is the intermediate mesoderm.
okay, so that's the second column, the intermediate mesoderm, and the third column will be the lateral. So you have the paraxial next to the neural tube, and you have the intermediate next to the paraxial, and then you have the lateral next to the intermediate, and he'll go through all of that. Intermediate, he's writing down. So each of these structures has a different feeling to it.
Mesoderm gives rise to the kidneys, gonads, genitals. And then the final part, this thing that looks like a couple of plates, just happens to be called the lateral plates. Lateral because it's on the side. And finally, this intermediate mesoderm is called intermediate because it's in the middle.
Okay, so the lateral plate gives rise to your limb buds, what become your arms and what becomes your legs.
Okay, this is what you should know. The mesoderm, paraxial mesoderm, intermediate mesoderm, lateral plates. Know that. Oh yeah, and the lateral plates, they're developed into circulatory vessels, etc. Okay.
As well as your arms.
What does this have to do with the kidneys? Let's get into it. You have probably never seen this before or are looking at this and saying, what? But don't worry, you will fully understand what this is. This is the intermediate mesoderm. So right here, but this being a cross-sectional view, this is the longitudinal view. So just flip this up and you'll see this, okay? But then again, this is not in one time frame. This, as it goes from the top, is in early kidney development to the late kidney development, but we'll go through it. So the kidney is developed in 3 stages. 2 of them are transitory, and the 3rd one is our final product. So the transitory just means we're going to begin with one structure, we're going to ditch that, go to the next structure, ditch that, and then we're going to be left with the 3rd one, which is what the adult kidney is. So the first transitory is called the pronephrous. The pronephrous.
Okay, can you read that? Pro for beginning, nephros stands for kidney. So it's the beginning kidney tissue, the pronephros. It's NEPHRUS with the prefix PRO. So pronephros, the beginning kidney.
Is here in red. And the kidney develops cranially, caudally. So from head to tail, top to bottom. So what happens is this part is developed, so it goes like this. As the kidneys are being developed, as time passes, 1 week, 2 weeks, the pronephros is developing, and that's the first part of the kidney, okay? And then by about 4 weeks, the
mesonephrous develops. That's the middle.
And by about 4 weeks, the pronephros is degraded, and the next stage takes over. The next stage, so from here to here, that's called the mesonephros. So
okay, so what does meso mean?
Mesonephros is
What does meso mean? Middle, right?
Middle?
Middle. Meso means middle. So you have mesoderm, and ecto means outer, and endo means inner.
being developed, the pronephros is degraded away and is no longer, because it's a rudimentary structure. It's only temporary and is the first stage of the kidney development. So the pronephros is gone, and then the mesonephros takes over. But what's the mesonephros? It's composed of, it's made up of a duct system called the mesonephric duct. The other name is Wolffian duct. And it also has tubules. So mesonephric tubule.
Okay, you've got ducts and you've got tubules. I think what we need to do is just we'll try to finish up so that you can just experience some of this for yourselves. Are you overwhelmed yet?
No, I feel like the pacing is good,
Okay.
personally.
It's good. So you told us about outer, inner, the prefixes
Yeah.
for derm. And what is derm? What does derm mean?
Derm means skin.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But it's not exactly, but you know, you have dermis, dermatitis, dermatologist,
Mm-hmm.
all same root.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, it's pretty simple if you put time and effort in. So what I've circled here around this, where the mesonephric section is this blue. It's tissue, it's mesenchymal tissue, and it's called the nephrogenic cord.
You don't have to know that, but it's the additional mesonephrous.
What is the nephrogenic cord? It's just tissue. It's mesenchymal tissue. And that will help develop into other structures that we'll go through. So we have the mesonephric tubules, these fork-like things that are ducts. And the mesonephros is actually a functioning kidney, but it's still immature. It's the second transitory phase, and it'll be developed into other things. What is it developed into? So from this mesonephric duct, caudally, a urethral bud is formed from it. So this right here is the urethral bud, or the metanephric diverticulum. Okay. So from this urethral bud, the metanephric diverticulum, that is part of the final stage, the permanent stage of the kidney, which is called the metanephrous.
Okay, so that's the real kidney, the metanephrous.
So we have metanephrous, mesonephros, transitory phase, pronephrous, which is gone. So by about the 9th week, we've got the mesonephros. So the urethral bud, though, is only for the collecting ducts. So it will eventually form the minor calyx, major calyx, ureter, pelvic, renal pelvis.
So when you say collecting ducts, what is it collecting?
Urine.
Oh,
Collecting urine
mhm.
from the kidneys.
Okay.
The byproduct.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Vasculature and everything. But where is that coming from? So where that comes from is, do you remember we spoke about this the nephrogenic cord, that's mesenchymal tissue? The sacral part of it, probably about a third of the bottom part of it, will become metanephric blastula, blastine. So this will eventually come off and circle around the urethral bud. So the metanephrine blastula. So the metanephric blastula is derived from the sacral part of the nephrogenic cord, which is just tissue. And
Okay, so now here you get a real example of this development of the lower body and the pelvic pit. From the sacrum, he's talking about the origin at the sacral level, that ureteric bud, the metanephric diverticulum, the ureteric bud, gives rise to these structures, the structure of the tubes and the conduits, the ureters, and more. So you can see right here, this growth is happening below the neural tube. It's the neural tube coming down and developing into more structures. So we have the upgrowing that we're all familiar with, and we have this downward force that gives us so much power and energy. And now what I'd like you to do is just experience your own body, in your own body, the movement that we're talking about that's giving rise to so much power that we have. So I'm going to turn the computer around, but I'd like you to experience some of the movement qualities that you might feel as a result of coming in touch with and being aware of these pelvic pit structures that are developing. So whatever you can do at this point is to feel, oh yeah, I know what she's talking about. I know what I'm feeling. Whatever you're aware of in your lower half. For me, I feel this roundness in my belly. And then if I bring my hands back to my kidneys and just massage my kidneys, it just centers me. see what you feel like if you take a plie and then rise from the plie. See if you can embody some of these structures in your movement. Have you ever had any bladder issues or kidney issues? It's interesting.
Indeed.
Huh?
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
I think I did. I mention my experience with my kidneys during
You
the
mean
What
during
is
the
it?
workshop?
during the
Maybe
work.
if you start reminding us, maybe we'll remember.
I developed a kidney stone a year ago. And
That's right. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead in case Azadeh needs to hear it.
I just had to go to the emergency room. I could hobble into the emergency room, and the doctors checked me for heart attack. That was their biggest concern. And I said, I'm not having a heart attack, because of all this experience of isolating different parts of your anatomy and moving from them, you get this awareness of your internal organs.
Yeah.
I said, it's my kidneys that are bothering me. Well, they took all kinds of blood tests and so forth. And then the doctors wanted to inject this antibiotic and painkiller. And I said, what is that for? And he said, well, that's preemptive. That's to prevent an infection. That's to reduce your pain. And I said, well, if you take away my pain, then I won't know what I'm feeling. So please don't give that to me. I don't have an infection. I don't have an infection. So don't give me something that's going to throw off my fauna and flora in my intestines and in my whole body. Don't give me something like that. So, but he was quite irritated with me. And they tried with three different people to give me that injection. And I just said no. So anyway, I got very familiar with kidney pain, and I have so much respect for that system in my body. It's a really important system, obviously. So hopefully you'll never have to go through that. But I learned a lot, and I felt grateful that I could identify that area of my body. And this is a part of what I want to impart to you. So if you're ever in a situation where someone tries to take over what you're feeling, you could say, no, that's not right for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree with you totally. Could you get rid of the stone by yourself without the Western medicine?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh, what did you do?
I had to have surgery.
Oh.
Oh.
Gave me two choices. I could have something called a lithotripsy, which is where they bang on the kidney, or I could have a procedure where they insert a tube that's like a laser tube, something called a thulium, THU, thulium fiber, optic fiber that disintegrates that stone. And that's the one I opted for because the doctor could actually visualize what was going on. With the other lithotripsy, they can't put something in there to see what's happening when they're banging on the kidney stone. So just didn't seem to make sense. You could bang on my kidneys for an hour. That didn't feel like the right choice for me. So
Did you manage to see the stone when it came out?
No, it was all powdered.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had been exploded in a way, it's all powdered. There's some still in there. There's some that's still in there. He said, don't worry about it. So my ureter was so small, he wasn't able to put in another wire that sucks out all the debris. So there it is.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I've loved this. I need to take off now.
Okay,
Thank you so much, Sarah.
You, Marilyn, and enjoy your time with your sisters. That's so very special.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you again. Bye-bye.
I'll send you the video so you
what happens is as these no longer
Bye.
So the mesonephros actually becomes the genitals. So it was a kidney that at one point, and it still is a kidney, but just the bottom third of it, because the rest is going to become the genital. So we have here, and it kind of,
Did you get that, Azadeh? That the
Yes.
rest of the structure becomes
Amazing.
yeah.
It's amazing.
it's starting to look like a kidney as well. It's surrounding the urethral bud, and what happens is, so if we're looking at this one, the urethral bud will bifurcate into the minor major calyxes, and the blastema will form these vesicles. And the vesicles will attach to the newly grown ducts, and that's how the kidney is developed. So
these finger-like projections called calyxes, C-A-L-Y-X, develop. And then these extra little nodes come along. And then you have this wrapping, which is your whole kidney. And that's how you get this filtering duct system. Just so amazing, becomes your metanephrous, your real kidney. So just play that once again so you can catch it.
And the blastema will form these vesicles, like a kidney as well. It's surrounding the urethral bud. And what happens is, so if we're looking at this one, the urethral bud will bifurcate into the minor major calyxes, like a kidney as well. It's surrounding, as these no longer become kidneys anymore, and so the mesonephros actually becomes the genitals. So it was a kidney that at one point, and it still is a kidney, but just the bottom third of it, because the rest is going to become the genital. So we have here, and it kind of is starting to look like a kidney as well. It's surrounding the urethral bud, and what happens is, so if we're looking at this one, the urethral bud will bifurcate into the minor major calyxes.
It bifurcates, which means it divides into two. It divides into more than that and becomes these major and minor calyxes, C-A-L-Y-X-E-S. It's a funny word. I like those words. Bifurcate. I like calyx, C-A-L-Y-X.
Mm-hmm. So this image he drew, it reminds me of what you said in the class, that our hands are like connected and these parts fall out.
Yeah.
Is there any link between these?
Only the shape of it. I mean, of course,
Okay.
we're talking about a kidney versus your hand.
Only the shape. Okay.
Only the shape.
Okay.
Might be able to find more connections.
Will form these vesicles, and the vesicles will attach to the newly grown ducts, and that's how the kidney is developed.
So these vesicles, like blood vessels, they attach to these calyxes, these new ducts, and that's how that whole filtration system happens. It's just remarkable that your body develops such a really complicated structure to take the waste products out and keep the water in. Or separate out the different parts of your body through the filtering mechanism.
And only mesoderm is responsible for the kidneys.
Yes.
Okay.
So to summarize everything, we have a blastula. Gastrulation will lead it to the three layers of the ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. And as it matures, it'll fold. The ectoderm will fold, and the rest will mature. The neural tube will pinch off the ectoderm. And if we're focused only on the mesoderm, we have the paraxial mesoderm. the intermediate mesoderm and the lateral plates. The important thing for kidneys is the intermediate mesoderm. So just this, that's the important part for the kidneys. Looking at it longitudinally, the kidney is developed in 3 stages. Pronephrous, which is temporary, it's fully degraded.
Okay, so we're looking at the intermediate mesoderm giving rise to the kidneys. So this portion of the mesoderm becomes this in a longitudinal view. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, and it looks like it develops into the outer sides of the pelvis pit.
Uh-huh.
Develops down and outside the pit, closer to the. Do you know what I'm talking about? That form shape you were giving us?
Yes.
Okay.
Mesonephros, which is also temporary, but also becomes the genitals eventually and the nephrons and the vasculature of the nephron and of the kidney. And then we have the metanephrous, which is the ureteral bud, and eventually the metanephric blastula. So that the tissue comes down, forms vesicles, and attaches to the ureteral bud. And as it grows, it becomes a full kidney. So now I'm going to post a link in the description. It's just animation. If you had watched that animation before the video, it would have probably made no sense. But now watch the animation and it should really put everything together for you. I hope you understood that. If not, leave a comment. I'll reply to, I'll help you guys out if you need. Other than that, I think that's it. Peace.
Okay.
Are we going to see the animation?
Embryology of the male reproductive tract, especially of the development of the testes. Now, I'm going to break it down extremely simple so that if you have no idea what embryology or development of the testes, or have you no idea and never seen any of this before, you will completely understand it, I promise, at the end of the video. And don't, as usual, don't let any of this scare you. We're going to go through it step by step and you'll understand everything. So the development of the testes is closely linked to the development of the kidneys as well. I have a...
There we go. So we're not going to do the gonads right now.
The animation we will see or not?
I'm not sure exactly which animation he's talking about. He's going in, the next video is about the male reproductive system. But if you want to search, you can go back to the video and look around and see what the next one would be.
Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting, this research, and they observe that as it develops in the body.
Yes.
Wow.
Somehow they developed that in the body. They must have taken a lot of embryos and put them on a big microscope to see what's actually happening.
And how Bonnie figured this out? Does she have such?
She was as her background was as an occupational therapist and a dancer. So she realized that you could actually embody these structures and find the wisdom in the structure.
Mm-hmm.
So it helps to understand the anatomy so that when you go into the structure with your feeling and experience, then you know actually what the science is.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, rather than it's a leap to think, oh, yes, I can be inside my body and I can get wisdom directly from my cells. But it's a truth at the same time because it just happens. There's just when you know something from your gut.
Yeah.
That inner wisdom and you just know that that's the truth for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of an emotional, non-rational place to be at the same time. It's based in actual structures and actual anatomy and physiology. And she's really the only person that I know as has a kind of sensitivity and self-awareness to lead the world in understanding the body on a different level.
So I find this amazing because, like I told you before, I'm always amazed about what's inside me that I can't see. I can only see what's outside. And even that, I can't see all of it. So the body-mind centering, this kidney formation somehow has to go into our mind and do something.
It doesn't have to go. You take your mind into that formation.
Oh, yeah, okay. So body-mind centering is more understanding the developmental ways of different organs, and then understand and try to embody that through our mind
Yes.
consciously.
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you.
You got it. Got it. And it's not only the embryology has been something I think in the last 25 years. But before that, in the beginning, we were looking at bones and then muscles and then ligaments. And we'd spend the whole like 6 weeks in the summertime studying one system. And then we did the lymph fluid, we did the blood. We looked at now I told you about the bones. That's very clear to work with the bones. We did each system in the body. And eventually that became the whole body. And how do you do the whole body? So all the systems at once. And then it became, how does it develop? How does it develop? And development was at birth. Reaching and pushing and first yielding into the gravity of the earth and the gravity of your mother, and how those patterns bring you out into the world, your senses and your nursing and all these aspects of infancy. You go through in a sequence. And so we were studying that. And then she discovered, well, what about before birth? What about embryology? So that's kind of the next chapter that we've all been studying for 25 years.
So does science, embryology science, learn or try to understand Connie's work and your work and body-mind centering?
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
There are some scientists that recognize this work.
Okay.
Candace Pert, sorry, I can't remember her name. There are some scientists that are far out thinkers that see the relevance of embodiment. But certainly there are a lot of people that are attracted to the work who are very scientifically oriented, who find it such a relief to be able to get into their bodies and feel how important the work is, to feel their own cells rediscover life.
It's amazing. Yeah, thank you.
It's exciting to see you open up and realize that this work is so valuable and so unusual and feel that I'm feeling grateful that you understand the power and the significance of this kind of.
Yeah. And for sure, there must be some physiological link between the embodiment, the brain, the mind, and these developments, because through those movements that you showed us and you displayed now, we probably somehow, without science figuring it out, only maybe intellectually and experientially, this is understood at this stage. Very good, very good. I really need to put time and study this. And yeah, I've meant to do that, but I have a long pile of things I have to do. So
We all a pile up of things that we need to do. So
yes, like everybody else. And
yes. But it's been a pleasure to have you, and it's been